guys, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of our channel. Today I'm talking about sickle cell trait. Sorry for the absence, time just flew by. I don't know if anybody else's time is going, but mine flew by, and that's how we got the interruption with the videos. But today I'm going to present on an unlikely, not so common topic, sickle cell trait. So we have the sickle cell disease, and then we have the sickle cell trait, but I'm not presenting on the disease, I'm presenting on the trait. The difference between sickle cell trait and the disease is with the disease, you have abnormal hemoglobin, two genes that cause abnormal hemoglobin, while with the trait, you have one defective gene. So you still can function. We function a fully functional life compared to the people who have the sickle cell disease, because for them activity is a little too strenuous. They are not able to participate in severely intense activities. They can't come to states like Colorado where they have to hike and the altitude is high. It doesn't work well for them. Most of them, if they're in states like Colorado, they usually have to relocate to other states where it's not high altitude, because with the disease, it makes it impossible for them to live in such places. For those who have the trait, you do live a normal life. Occasionally, you do get exhaustion if you overexert yourself, but it's not like the sickle cell trait, the sickle cell disease, where you get into crisis. They usually get into crisis where they are actually hospitalized to be treated. With the trait, you don't get those. You're usually able to live a very normal life, so to speak. It usually affects African Americans mostly, 8 to 10%. And it was under, somebody said that other people can get it. No, other people can get it. It's mostly 8 to 10% of African Americans get it, but sickle cell trait can affect Hispanics, South Asians, Caucasians from Southern Europe. So just not blacks. Majority it's in blacks, but you can get it if you're Caucasian, Hispanic, and South Asian from Southern Europe. You can get it too. Also, people from Middle Eastern countries do get sickle cell trait. More than 100 million people worldwide have sickle cell trait. The funding is not so great, so you won't get so much information, but they do have, I would say, enough information to make you have a basis of what sickle cell trait is. So it's enough out there, but the funding is not so much that it's overexposed. So if you want to find out more about it, you do have the hematology clinics, the Sickle Cell Foundation that has more information on it, but it's pretty a lot of information that can get one going pretty well because it's extensively discussed. They don't get crisis. They live a normal life. They do get exhaustion. You can get dehydrated if you have it, if you overexert yourself. Some people, the extremely heavy exercise will lead to serious health issues. Not as bad as the disease itself. The disease itself can cause death, but the trait will just lead to exhaustion, dehydration. If you know how to hydrate yourself, if you know how to avoid the things that make it worse for you, then it's easier to avoid it than to exert your body. Exactly. If you go hiking, it takes you a little bit of time. If you hike all the time and you go with friends that hike, you'll notice that you're taking longer to catch your breath compared to them, because they don't have that less oxygenation. So they will just start right off when you go hiking. But for you, it takes acclimatization to the hike. It takes about an hour for you to get to normal breathing standards to be able to catch with them. So if you're hiking with a group of people that are fast hikers, it's good to let them know, I don't hike as fast. The reason I don't hike as fast is I have the trait and I struggle for oxygen. It happens to me, so I know. And I struggle for oxygen when I start the first 1 hour. After the hour is done, then you can hike at a normal pace, and you can keep going and going and going. But the first 1 hour, I notice for me, people are different, but for me, I'm out of breath. However flat the surface is, however inclined it is, I am usually so out of breath, I feel like my chest is going to burst. But then after 1 hour, I get acclimatized and I'm able to keep going. So if you do hike with friends, let them know. Let them know, yes, we're going to hike, we're going to have a fun time. But when I start out, I don't usually rush. I'll catch up with you guys, but it will be okay after a while. Signs and symptoms of it, rarely do they get health complications. Occasionally, you can have blood in your urine as someone with sickle cell trait. It's very unusual, but occasionally you can get, under extreme conditions, as I had talked about, high altitude, severe dehydration, high intensity physical workout, you can literally pass out because of lack of oxygen, because your cell is sickled, is what it is. Most cells are round, but the sickle cell one is sickled. So it's not as round as, if you know how red blood cells are nice and round, the sickle cell one is not nice and round, it's sickled. So that's why it's sickle cell trait or sickle cell disease. They are red blood cells pretty much that are deformed, is what they are. A red blood cell is nice and round. A sickled one is not nice and round, it's sickled. You can have, there's a disease called rhabdomyolysis, which is like the breakdown of muscle. You can get that if you have sickle cell trait, if you overexert yourself. So be careful, know your limit, know how far you can push yourself. Some people do get reduced with very severe, intense exercise, reduced supply to the spleen, which can cause a heart attack, basically, or what we call ischemia, is meaning that there's no oxygen going to a certain part, or increased pressure in the eye. These are rare, These are rare, but they can happen in extreme conditions. And then very, very, very rarely, a rare form of kidney cancer called renal medullary carcinoma. You are at increased risk if you have the sickle cell trait. It's rare, but you are at an increased risk having it. What are the risk factors for it? African Americans, Hispanic, South Asians, people from Middle Eastern, and Caucasians from South Europe. People are under the impression that it's only African Americans. No, it's not. It is all those people I mentioned, Hispanics, people from Middle Eastern countries, Caucasians from South Europe can get it, and of course, African Americans. Being number one is African Americans, but all these other people can get it. So you can be on it. I've seen people on medication for it, but it's manageable. The trait is manageable. The disease, you need medications. When you do get under extreme pressures, you do need medications. Sometimes they're hospitalized. But the trait, you can pretty live a normal life with it. Just know how far you can exert yourself, how much you can exert yourself, and what your body can take, so that if you're with people around you that don't know, then they can help you through whatever it is you're doing. Are you hiking? Are you walking with them? So that they know to adjust to your pace, and then you guys can have a fun time exercising with them. Participation in high intensity workouts, usually something like the army, they started checking for it. So if you have it, you may not be able to join the army, but they do check for it. That if you do have the trait, you may not be at optimum performance. So now they're checking for it, because what was happening is some athletes were passing out. And so in recent years, they've started checking for it. So it's a mandate for some organizations to mandate that athletes have the sickle cell panel done to rule out, do you have sickle cell? Do you have the disease? Do you have the trait? So that there's no accidents happening on the ground where you just pass out. There was a guy that had it, but he really pushed himself. I want to say David Goggins had the trait, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. But I think he had it, but he pushed himself really hard. He's an example of what mind over matter is. But now they're checking it more. So if you're going to enlist in the army or have some high intensity work for a company that you have to go through this high intensity workouts. Usually it's the army, the navy, those kind of stuff. Now they're checking for it to make sure that, hey, let's reduce the people that are passing out because of exertion on the field. If they have this, then we need to be aware or not enlist them for that reason. Strenuous athletic training. Mostly it's the army that has strenuous athletic training. So some teams will do it, but mostly enlisting in the army and the navy, those ones that need consistent training, they'll check you for it. So if you go and they check you for it, it's nothing against them. It's just they have athletes that pass out during their heavy and strenuous workouts, so they have to take care of themselves and be able to check for this. Anything else I can think of it? There is the disease. I will present on the disease, but I just wanted to do a short clip on the trait, the risk factors for it, the people it affects, and pretty much living a normal life with it as much as you can, because it doesn't affect much unless you do extreme stuff. You guys have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Take care.